We're doing lesson 67, Torah Samech Zayin, in the first part of Likutey Moharan, where we left off. We're in the middle of Sif Hey. Just before we continue, we just can't pass it that we don't mention, not to mention the connection between this Torah and Shavuot. This Torah was given, Rabbi Nachman gave this Torah on Shavuot itself. He would speak normally on Shavuot between the first and second day in Chutz La'aretz, right? It's 2 days, there's Yom Tov Sheni. So after Mincha, he would start speaking and go into the night of the second night. And this is the Torah that he gave in 1807. And there's so many themes in this Torah which are connected, relevant to, number one, that Shavuot, the Shavuot in general, but also that specific Shavuot. We spoke about, for example, the passing of a soul, Histalkut HaNefesh, and Rabbi Nachman's wife, she passed away the day before, on Erev Shavuos, and he incorporated that in the Torah. And he speaks about that the kavod comes to a person, or chas shalom to take away a nefesh, or to give a person a new hitchatshut, a new revitalization in his nefesh. And also in this Torah is the theme of Re'amim coming up at the very end, where he's going to talk about giving kavod, giving honor to a zaken sheshachach talmudo. That's the wording in the Gemara in Masechet Brachot. There's a mitzvah, a commandment, to respect a Torah scholar who forgot his Torah. And then Rabbi Nachman teaches that through that comes Ra'amim, thunder. And this is related to the thunder of Shavuot. And the whole idea of the Anan, where we didn't get to that far really in the Torah, but he talks about the idea of clouds, how clouds work with thunder and rain and everything. So it's all relevant, and the revelation of Da'at afterwards, it's all relevant to Har Sinai. And the idea of Machloket coming up and Shalom. So the whole inyan that it says by Har Sinai, Vayichan Sham, right? Am Yisrael as one, in a singular unit. They were all unified in unison, together by Har Sinai to receive the Torah. So that's the opposite of Machloket, which he speaks about in this Torah. There's many inyanim in this Torah that are connected to Shavuot, if we go deeper and deeper and deeper. But this Torah is really phenomenal. It's really amazing, and it's very profound, because this idea of kavod touches upon every area of life, because the whole inyan of the life, of the world, of the creation, is for kavod. In other words, kol hanikra bishmi v'lichvodi berativ yetzartiv af asiti. Hashem says, right, that everything that you see in existence, everything that I formed and shaped for my honor, for the honor of Hashem, to reveal the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which means, what does that mean? To recognize there's a creator, and he wants you to run in accordance to his will, and by doing that, you will be a recipient of his goodness. The way Rabbeinu coins, he terms the being a recipient of the goodness, is that you get a new nefesh chadash, through the kavod. By getting a new nefesh means there's a new energy in pushing you forward to newer perceptions of the Torah, B'ezrat Hashem, and of Yiddishkeit, and of Emun, of everything. So this Torah is very profound, and the kavod factor is very dangerous. He says it's on condition though. If you receive the kavod for the sake of Hashem, Shem Shemayim, then you can receive the nefesh chadash, the new soul, the new energy, and the new levels that are waiting for you in life. But to get to them, you need this nefesh chadash. It can't work just as it is and just expect to get there on by itself. You need a boost from Shemayim, another word for siyata dishmaya, in order to get these levels. So you have to make sure you receive the kavod properly. And if not, then chas shalom, a person can have what's called histalkut, or a physical passing, or they take away from a person what he got already in life. So this inyan is so shayach in life, because the kavod factor is such a big thing in people's lives. People run for kavod. He says, Rav Nosson, he brings it down in the Likutey Halachot, that the whole world is based on kavod. Kavod means to have honor, to have power, to have money, to have wealth, to become somebody, to get a degree, to become something. Even in Yiddishkeit, to become a Rav, to become a Dayan, to become a Tzaddik, to finish Shas. All this thing of accomplishment is another word for kavod, and that's the danger. That you have to, you're on the guard every second of your life. Are you going to be l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, totally? Or you can have personal interest. I want to have a nice family. I want to have a nice portrait on the wall for all the kids, and everything is beautiful and zach and nice. For the sake of what? Of personal satisfaction, which is personal kavod. It's a danger. You can lose out. Whereas I'm just totally for the Shem Shamayim. The nafkamina is what you'll gain with that attitude. You'll gain much more if you are totally masur, to be boreach from the kavod. That's the Chazal. Chazal, Mishnah Brura Meforash, quoting the Rambam, that there's two items that a person has to be kitzoni, has to be extreme to the maximum. One is by ka'as, and number two, which is ga'ava. Everything else, like the Rambam says, you take the middle route. But two items, you must be extreme. And there's a danger. There's no, okay, there's sometimes. You have to work and realize that it's totally extreme. Not to be angry, and no trace of ga'ava. Ga'ava, in other words, is a wanting for kavod, personal honor. Personal kavod is another wording again for the idea of ga'ava, what the Mishnah Berurah says and the Rambam says. So these two items, a person has to be having me'od shval ruach, the wording in Pirkei Avot, and to be boreach me'akavod, to run away from any trace of kavod. So this Torah, the ideas here are very fundamental, are very important, are very real. And this whole inyan of the panim to the kavod, where we mentioned that the kavod has to have a face, which means that Hashem's will. How do you honor Hashem? By honoring what Hashem wants you to honor, such as the Talmidei Chachamim, the Tzaddikim, who deserve the real honor, they deserve the true honor. The honor belongs to them and not for a person where he thinks on his own that who's this guy, I should honor him. I would rather honor somebody else, a false leader, or honor myself instead of honoring the tzaddikim. So that also is part of the picture here. And we see that the honor is to honor the tzaddikim in order that the kavod should have a face, and then you can have and give birth. That's the wording coming up, what we saw it already, to give birth to the new nefesh. So that in summary is the whole ideas until now. And you already hear these ideas, they're very delicate, they're very edel inyanim, they touch upon very sensitive points. And we see, like by Rabbeinu also, that his wife passed away, and he incorporated the idea in the Torah, that a person has to guard the nefesh. Because chas v'shalom, when there's a kavod, a new kavod, it could be coming to take away nefesh. And by Rabbeinu it was fresh, the inyan of his wife being taken away from him. And we can go on that point, but I mentioned some things last week, which we don't have to repeat again. Al Kopanim, we're going to continue now. And he says in this Torah, the key now to put the kavod in the right address and to rectify the kavod and everything else connected to kavod and melech kavod and to get the nefesh. The key for all of this is tzedakah. Tzedakah, like the verse says, tzedakah tatzil mimavet. Tzedakah will save from death, that they won't take away this nefesh. You'll get a nefesh. Tzedakah tatzil mimavet. So now we're just in the middle of Sif Hey. Maybe 4 lines down, in the middle, mamash in the middle, where it says, Va'yidei bechinat. You see that? Va'yidei bechinat ha'chamisha chasadim, ayidei zeh mosifin hey. So it's Torah Samech Zayin, 67, paragraph number 5, Sif Hey, in the middle. Mamash, almost in the middle. You see it? Va'yidei bechinat ha'chamisha chasadim. He said earlier that when the kavod is blemished, and then the panim is blemished, and then there's no nefesh, so then the Malchut also, which is called Melech HaKavod, our job is to join Melucha with Hashem. Hashem is Melech HaKavod. We bring the Melech HaKavod to Hashem. We restore the glory only to Hashem. We put it in the right address, as opposed to other people who take the honor of Hashem for themselves. Chas v'shalom. So now, when there's a blemish in the Kavod and the Malchut, so Malchut is termed Tzedek. And we went in last week, Rabbi Nachman goes in to explain every single detail of the tzaddik and the dalit and the kuf, which are the 3 stages of the malchut of Hashem descending to the other side, to the klipot. He says the tzaddik is like a bent nun and a yud, a backwards yud on the back of the nun. That's how you write in the Sefer Torah tzaddik. In the tzaddik, the leg of the yud is not on the right side, right? So it's not on the right side; it's on the left side. In the tzaddik, in the letter tzaddik, the leg of the yud joining the yud on the top to the nun, so the leg is on the left side and the nun is bent. So it's called hastarat panim, that the yud is facing backwards from the back of the nun. Nun, he brings the pasuk from Tehillim, difnei shemesh yinon shemo, nun corresponds to malchut, and the yud is chokhmah, which is the idea of the panim. Chokhmat Adam ta'ir panav, the wisdom of a person enlightens his face. So you have the damage caused when there's no panim to the malchut. It's separated. So that's the tzaddik. And then the next stage of damage is dalit, which means dal, ve'evyon, poor, that the malchut of Hashem is now impoverished. And then the third level of damage is kuf. Kuf is like the kof, a monkey. Kuf and Kof have the same letters, that the false leaders, the Azei Panim, the brazen-faced people, they take the kavod of Hashem for themselves. They're cholek la'atzman kavod, they don't deserve it, and it's kekof bifnei adam, like monkeys compared to the real people. False leaders are taking the honor. And also the second point is, what is the letter Kuf? It's the only letter of the 22 letters of the regular letters, not the mantzpach, not the end letters of mems, of nun sofit and tzadik sofit and kaf sofit, but the middle letters, the 22 letters of the aleph bet. The only letter that has a long letter going down is Kuf. Resh doesn't have a long leg, Shin doesn't have a long leg, Hey doesn't, regular nun no. Only the Kuf has a leg going downwards, which indicates it going down to the tuma, to the evil. Raglea yodot mavet, we said, right? The legs go down to evil. It's a pasuk in Mishlei. That's the idea of the Kuf. So tzedek shows judgment now, malchut, but it's severe. It's not good. It has to come out of that because it's exacting. You only get what you deserve, and because we don't deserve anything, so it's very tough judgment. So what we have to do, Rabbi Nachman says, is transform the tzedek to tzedakah. Do tzedakah. What tzedakah does, adds the letter hey to the tzedek, and that mitigates it. So watch, that's what it's explaining now. And he said that there's what's called in the Kabbalah 5 chasadim. It's a terminology in the Kabbalah known. Rabbi Nachman, when he brings an idea, he assumes you did the background research on understanding these musagim. He's not going to spend time to explain them. When he's quoting Chamisha Chasadim, he assumes you know already the background hakdama and introductions to know what does mean the Hay Chasadim in the Kabbalah. There's Hay Gevrot and Hay Chasadim. This is a common term in the Kabbalah. He assumes you know it, but he explained it nicely also. He added some details that the tzedakah is called Chesed because we said the Gemara Ein HaTzedakah Mishtalem Ela Kfi Chesed Sheba. That the value of the tzedakah, there's many levels of tzedakah. What determines a higher level of tzedakah? The amount of chesed you invest in doing that tzedakah. We want the example, the Gemara says that there's a person who gives money, but he waits for the poorest person to come to him and then he gives. But you have another person who runs after poor people to find who to give to. Who gets more zchut, more merit? The one who goes running after. Because there's more chesed here. That's the Gemara there. So chesed and tzedakah are connected. And then he goes in to say that these are the hey chasadim. It's a known idea in the Kabbalah. And it corresponds to the 5 times the word tzedakah appears in the Chumash. If you look in the whole Chumash, 5 times you have the word tzedakah. By Avram Avinu, before Hashem destroyed Sodom, Hashem said, how could I not tell Avram Avinu, Parashat Vayera, how could I not tell Avram Avinu what I'm about to do? Because he's going to command his bait, his future offspring, his household, to do tzedakah umishpat. He's going to command. I know that Avram is worth telling, and I have to inform him, and I love him, and I trust him, and he's for the whole world is for Avram Avinu, because he's going to command his family, his household, lasot tzedakah or mishpat. So that's the first time tzedakah appears. The second time by Yehuda and Tamar, where it's not exactly tzedakah, it's tzadka mimeni. He said, don't kill Tamar. Tzadka, she's right. She got pregnant from me, mimeni. And Rashi brings the Midrash, Hashem said, Mimeni. All this is a trick from me in order to prepare the soul for David the Melech and ultimately Mashiach to come down. So the wording there is tzadka. That's the second time. And then the third one, I have to remember where it is again. It's It's by the laws of lending. I forgot it already. I'm sorry. I had it in the last week's shir. It was clear. But there's 2 in Dvarim, and there's 1 in Bamidbar. There's the one which is by lending a poor person, and by lending him and not demanding the money back. So it'll be tzedakah tiyeh lachem. Hashem said it'll be considered tzedakah because the poor person will bless you. Tzedakah tiyeh lachem, right? And also by that's by lending to a poor person. And then the idea of the garment, of taking a collateral of a mashkon, taking the garment when you can't pay back, you're taking a collateral of the mashkon. So there also said tzedakah. And then in Dvarim, there's another one in Dvarim that says about the tzedakah that your children will ask you in Parashat Dvarim, where it's all Musar there, that why are we keeping these mitzvot? So the tzedakah tiyeh, it will be considered tzedakah for us that we follow the righteous statutes of the Torah. So there's the 5 times that tzedakah appears, and he says these are the 5 chasadim, which is why tzedek with a hey becomes tzedakah. It's dafka letter hey, because it signifies the 5 times of tzedakah. So watch. Through the 5 chasadim, which is the Kabbalistic terminology of transferring chesed from higher levels into the Malchut, to mitigate it, the strict judgment of Malchut, to make it from tzedek to a normal Malchut, which is Mishpat. Okay? By doing that, we add the letter Hey to tzedek. V'na'aset mi tzedek tzedakah. So it becomes transformed from tzedek, which is strict judgment, tzedakah, which is kindness, charity, the exact opposite. By adding just one letter, it becomes lo zo af zo, the exact opposite. Tzedek is one extreme, and tzedakah, which has just the letter Hey, is the exact opposite. It's not just by the way, it's exact opposite. Ukeneged zeh, like we said now, and what's it called? Correlating to these five, this Hey, Keneged zeh, nizkar b'Torah 5 pa'amim tzedakah. And the whole Torah, take a look, like we said in the Chumash, you'll find the words, the letters tzadik dalet kuf hey, 4 times tzedakah, once tzedakah, 5 times the word tzedakah in the whole Chumash. Keneged ha-5 chasadim, corresponding to the 5 chasadim, shu bechinat tzedakah, which is the idea of tzedakah. Because again, the tzedakah is very important that it has chesed. We want to mitigate the judgment, so we add chesed into it. That's the tzedakah, the power of the tzedakah. That Rabbi Nachman is going into detail like this, so you see he's trying to hint to something else. This is an example. Like he's going off. You l'chora, okay, you got the point across, and he's going into the idea of chamisha chasadim. I understood already. It's clear enough, Rabbi Nachman, that you say the letter Hey, and it corresponds to the 5 times that tzedakah appears in the Torah. Why do you have to add this detail, this stage of the Hey chasadim, which is a Kabbalistic term? Well, what's going on here? Why do I need to hear this point? What does it add? My nafkamina to the beautiful drasha that you're explaining here. This point of the Hey Chasadim, which is Kabbalah, even besides that, just mentioning the 5 times in the Chumash tzedakah and everything, and the Gemara you brought earlier, that Einash tzedakah mishtanet lekvia chesed, I understand already. But why is it going on to this whole drasha of tzedek, tzedakah, chasadim? So you see there's dvarim bego, there's something deeper here. And he's obviously corresponding to a deep Jewish in the Kabbalah, meaning that if now you are an expert in Kabbalistic writings, Kitvei Ari, for example, and you delve into wherever the Arizal talks about the Hey Chasadim, so you'll find this idea, the Arichut, you'll find that the Arizal has major drashot, and they're based on this whole idea. And he's bringing now Rabbi Nachman in Rashi Prakim, in very condensed format. Someone who's a Kabbalist, for example, he sees this, he'll flip out. Because he sees there's something here, and he's saying, wow, in just one paragraph, he's putting in many pages of Arizal's drashot in one paragraph. We don't see it, because we're not Mekubalim, we don't have the eyes of people who've learned all the Shar Kavanot and Etz Chaim and all the works of the Kabbalah. But someone who has, and he sees this, he knows exactly what he's talking about. And my nafkamina, there's more details behind the scenes which you don't see on the Pshat. Again, each lesson in Likutey Moharan, there's the Pshat, and then there's another level, and there's another level. There's endless levels, depending on where you're coming from. The more you learn it, he said himself, Rabbi Nachman and Chaim Moran, the more you're learned in the whole Pardes, the more you can grasp better what I'm trying to say. Because you have more footing, you see much, much, much more clearer the picture. It comes out much, much more clearer. And the nafkamina is there's more details which the person coming from beginning doesn't see. He sees more details which put in more pieces of the puzzle of the picture that he's giving. And what comes out of that is more eitzot that are not on the revealed level. It's kedai one day to take a look at the Hakdama to Likutey Moharan. There's a Hakdama written by Rav Nosson at the very beginning of Likutey Moharan. And he brings down a sicha. He's in the Hakdama, he brings down a sicha that's found in Chaim Moharan that Rabbeinu gave right after, the day after Yom Kippur, in Uman, before he passed away in 1810, the day after Yom Kippur, it's called Shem Hashem, the 11th of Tishrei, the day is called Shem Hashem, in the Chassidish Welt, they call Shem Hashem. So on that day, what? No, not Yom Kippur. No, it's another day. Yom Kippur is before Yom Kippur. Shem Hashem is the day, Yud Aleph Tishrei, it's called Shem Hashem. It's a whole lesson, Likutey Moharan, lesson Torah Samech Vav in part 2. Tinyana, take a look there, explains it. It's a whole lesson how he explains why it's called Shem Hashem. In short, because the chesed of Hashem is activated at such a high level on Yom Kippur, this total rachamim, total slicha and kapara and everything. So the name of Hashem, Yud Ke Vav Ke, which is rachamim, compassion, is revealed. So the day itself, after Yom Kippur, is called Shem Hashem to show what we accomplished on Yom Kippur. We accomplished tremendous rachamim, tremendous chesed was activated on Yom Kippur, so the day after. It's called Shem Hashem. On that day, in Uman, before he passed away, Mamash, how many days? 8 days before he passed away? He passed away on Chai Tishrei. 7 days before he passed away. So Rabbi Nachman began to explain to Rav Nossim how the Likutey Moharan works, how his Sefer works. He says, like entering a palace, and you're just amazed by the beauty of the first room. You're in the first room, and you can't stop marveling on the beauty of the shape of the room. That corresponds to when Rabbi Nachman, he brings a hasaga, an idea, and then he shows you how it's hinted to in a pasuk or a chazal. You flip out. You flip out. It's so amazing. You see the pshat of the pasuk, how Rashi explains it in Metzudah David, how the Gemara, fine, I accept it. And then he takes a high idea, and then he shows you how it's in a pasuk that you knew for 20 years, you know this pasuk, and you never saw like that. Your neshama is overwhelmed. It's over. The beauty is unbelievable. Because you're just amazed, wow, how it fits in so nicely. He says this idea, and now just as into this pasuk, and it fits in perfectly. Amazing. So that's one room. And then you see at the end of the room, there's a door leading to another room. That's when he connects another idea. He leads from less. That's the first concept. He brings as A, and then he goes to B, and he connects them afterwards. He has a door opening. So in there, in discussing that, he says there's doors and floors and windows. Windows, meaning you see other rooms in the palace. You don't see the door. There's no door to get into it, but you see there's a window. You know that it exists. So this is now when a person goes into the depth. There's major depth in the Likutey Moharan. When a person discovers this depth, he begins to see what's called the remazim, the hints that Rabbi Nachman is hinting to. He doesn't say meforash in the lesson, but he gives remazim that they exist. Idea is that on the pshat you don't see it, but when you do the research, when you do the digging, when you do all the iyun and the learning behind the background of everything he's quoting, and you do the whole picture, you begin to see other points that he didn't mention meforash, but there's a remez to it, there's a hint to it, and it's part of the picture. And nafkamina, it's part of the eitzot, what to do in order to activate all these inyanim that he's mentioning about the kavod, the nefesh, the tzedakah, and everything, all these beautiful inyanim. It's another point that you don't see on the chor, on the pshat, but the more you dig, you see it, and you get to it. So this is an example of this Ay Chamisha Chasadim. He's going on, he's ma'arich a little. Fine. כנגד זה נזכר בתורה 5 פעמים צדקה, כנגד ה5 חסדים שהוא בחינת צדקה as mentioned above. Okay, now watch. Now, Rabbeinu is going to take everything until now and put it in one pasuk. This is amazing. וזה בחינת, now this is the idea, what it says in Yeshayahu, מי העיר ממזרח, צדק יקראו לרגלו. Okay, who העיר, is the me'orer, to wake up. Who aroused from the east? And the Mefarshim, the Midrash, the Gemara says this refers to Avraham Avinu, who aroused Avraham to run after the 4 kings. Remember the 4 and the 5 kings to save Lot? It's Yeshayahu talking about the past, because he's rebuking Am Yisrael and rebuking the nations. Who aroused the east? Tzedek, justice, Yikra'eu, he'll call to his feet. So now watch how Rabbeinu explains it. Mi he'ir mi mizrach, who arouses from the east. What is the east here? Ze bechinat tzedakah. This is the idea of charity, of tzedakah. How do I know the connection between tzedakah and mizrach? Bivchinat, like it says, it's another pasuk in Yeshayahu, 2 chapters later, chapter 43. Mimizrach avi zarecha, it's another prophecy. From the east I will bring your seeds to plant, to sow seeds in the earth, to grow plants and to grow trees and vegetation and crops. Mimizrach, from the east, I will bring your seed to sow, to plant. And what is the word zera, planting? Bechinot, zir'u lachem litzdaka. Plant, sow seeds, zir'u lachem, for the sake of charity. So he's reading it. Look at this one. You see how it works? 1, 2, 3. A 3-proof point stages in proving. Okay? He wants to connect Mizrach to Tzedakah. So he goes from Mizrach to Zera to Tzedakah. So Mizrach is connected to the idea of seeds, because it says Mimizrach avi zarecha, from the east I will bring the Zera. That means the Zera, the seeds, comes from the east. And then, now what is the planting the seeds? Ziru lachem litzdaka. Ziru is for you considered litzdaka, is as if it's tzedakah. So it's a 3-stage proof. So Mizrach is another wording for tzedakah. That's how he proves it. Nice. Ze bechinat tzedakah, right? Mimizach avizarecha. It comes. I will bring the seeds from the east, and then plant for you tzedakah. Litzedakah. It'll be considered for you tzedakah. So now, going back to the pasuk, mi he'ir mi mizrach, who arouses from the east, as if it reads, who's arousing from tzedakah? Whoever arouses, causes an arousal from the concept, the avoda, the arousal of tzedakah. Okay? Al yedei zeh, the seifa, the end of the pasuk, tzedek yikra'eu liraglo. This is phenomenal. Look how he explains it. Tzedek calls its legs, its leg, liraglo, its leg. Hainu. Shali de tzedakah, by tzedakah, which is mizrach, azay tzedek. What does tzedek do now? Tzedek is din. And he said two things about the kuf. He said, number one, kuf is like a monkey, kof. But he also said that the kuf ideally, originally was like the letter hey, which is chesed. And this is, by the way, why he goes into the idea of the hey. Because he wants to show that kuf originally was a hey. Even though there's no such word, you don't have tzeda, there's tzedek. But he's saying this tzedek, which is not so positive, it's din, is because the last letter, which is a kuf, was originally a hey, and it extended, the leg extended, becoming a kuf. Even though technically in the parsha, when the Sofer writes a Sefer Torah, the kuf looks different than the hey. In other words, the right leg, the top, the roof, and the right leg of the kuf is not exactly like a hey. A hey is sharp, right? Boom. And then down like that. Whereas the kuf goes in a little. When the Sofer writes it, it goes mamash in, right? That, okay? Afilachi, it generally has the shape of a hay. It has the shape of the roof and the right leg of the hay. And the leg we extended downwards. It's like in the beginning it was a hay, but then the Sofer continues with the ink downwards and becomes a kuf. So now, the kuf there, we said two things. It was a monkey, number one kuf, but also that the leg went down. And the shefa, the malchut goes down to the klipot, the other side. So now watch what he says here. Hainu, in other words, shali de tzedakah, through giving tzedakah. So azay tzedek, what does it tzedek do now? Kore et haraglin, it calls back the feet. In other words, the leg of the kuf, which means that now the malchut is going downwards to the other side, to the improper leaders. The malchut, the honor of Hashem, is now, it's by the wrong address. So now tzedek is calling it back now, calling back the legs. Tzedek yikreu is like whistling, come back. He's like whistling that the legs should go back upwards. As I tzedek kore et haraglin, shemalin et haraglin. It's calling back the leg of the kuf to go back up. Mibechinat, from raglea yordot. Her legs go down to death. That's a pasuk. Raglea yordot mavet. Its legs go down to death. And we asked the question. In the pasuk it's in plural. It's raglea, her legs, which symbolize two legs, yordot, and we have only one leg. There was a question we asked. I don't have an answer, but that's how you learn the Likutey Moharan. You have to ask questions. Rabbi Nachman, he wants you to ask questions. Once he told Rav Aaron, the Rav of Breslev, his Talmid, he said, "Why don't, when learning my book Likutey Moharan, why don't you look for questions, and then keep on going, and you'll find the answers." In other words, the way of Likutey Moharan is to ask. Ask as much as you want. Ask as much as you can. That's good. You're supposed to ask in every detail because you'll find there's an answer for it. It's amazing. You dig more, you'll see the chidush that comes out by asking. When you ma'ayin more and you find the answer, there's more. You just open the new dimension in the Torah, and it gives you a new hitchadshut in the understanding of the Torah. But this is a question. I don't have an answer yet. Why the pasuk's in plural? You're using as a proof for the leg of the kuf, this pasuk which is ragleha, which is in plural. But there's only one leg, ragleha, akopanim. But how he fits it into this pasuk, tzedek yikra'eu leraglo. The tzedek now calls back up its feet, its foot. It's there, it's singular, leraglo. Its foot, which is the leg of the kuf which is going down, to bring it back up so that the kuf should no longer be a kuf, should be a hay. And that happens, that's the hay at the end of tzedakah. So it's as if we're not ending with a kuf, which is a bad end, a negative, like a dead end. It's a very sad story. It ends with the letter kuf. We're now ending it with a hay to show that the kuf became afterwards back to being a hay, which is something positive. Because the hay corresponds to the hay chasadim. Okay? Fine. So that's his first proof. So again, mi ha'ir mi mizach, whoever arouses from the power of tzedakah. So what he accomplishes is now that the tzedek calls back its feet, which means that now we restore the malchut of Hashem back to its proper address, which is Hashem. The kavod and malchut, mi hu zeh melech hakavod, Hashem tzvakot hu melech. Who's the melech hakavod, the king of glory? Who has the malchut and the kavod? Hashem. Hashem tzvakot, Hashem of the hosts, the God of hosts. So now that's his first proof. V'zeh bechinat, he goes on further now, because he wants to put in the idea of the face, the panim, which wasn't mentioned here at all. V'zeh bechinat, this is the idea of v'halach lefanecha tzidkecha. Watch this. Now he takes all the ideas up to now, and he adds one more detail, the idea of the panim. Hainu, what is v'halach lefanecha tzidkecha, first of all? And your righteousness, tzidkecha, will walk before you. That's the pshat. So watch what he says. Hainu, in other words, shatzedek yuchalelech, I give now feet for the tzedek. They can walk. They're not. There's movement. What does it mean? There's movement. He explains. The tzedek can walk. Hainu bechinat shema'alin haraglim. I elevate the legs. Shehem klei halicha, which are the vehicles of walking, of the faculty, the ability to move, movement, walking. V'zeh v'halach lefanecha. So now it's walking towards the panim, to your face. Lefanecha daika, to the face specifically. What does that mean in our context? Ki ma'alin et hakavod v'malchut, we elevate the kavod and the malchut, which was trapped in tzedek. We now make it that it walks to panim. El or hapanim, that goes to the light of the face. He added this new word, or. Until now, we're talking about the panim. The panim, we said, if you remember, refers to the countenance of Hashem. The countenance of Hashem is another wording for the 13 attributes of mercy. You have to see to it when you get a dosage of kavod coming your way, that immediately you give it a panim. You give it a countenance, which means you restore back the kavod to Hashem and don't take the honor for yourself. By doing so, the kavod has a panim, which means that the kavod will come to give chesed, to give goodness. He says, Rav Nosson Likutey Halachot, we saw in Mezuzah Halacha Gimel, that the panim is the protection of the kavod to ensure that the kavod will do its proper job, which is to give only a nu nefesh, which is compassion and goodness to a person, to bring goodness. That's the idea of the kavod having a panim, that it has the countenance of Hashem on it, which is the Yud Gimel Midot Sherachamim. So now what is he saying here? Halach lefanecha. Fine, the legs walk. Legs is ragleya, legs go down to the impurity. But now I'm making it, ve'alach lefanecha. I let the legs of the tzedek, the kuf, they're walking towards the panim. That now they're elevated and they're walking to give what's called a countenance or hapanim. He added this word or, because it's referring to the Kabbalistic term of the panim, which is called or hapanim, the light of the countenance of Hashem, which again is his chesed. We're giving that, taking out from the tzedek, which is strict judgment, elevating the kavod and the malchut, that it has a panim now, which is something positive now. And all this is through tzedakah. V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha, and the verse doesn't say tzidkatecha. In other words, tzidkecha is your tzedek, and not your tzedakah. If the verse said your tzedakah, so the grammar is tzidkatecha. It doesn't say v'halach lefanecha tzidkatecha. It's v'halach lefanecha tzidkecha, that we're taking the tzedek, elevating it. The tzedek is going now up to the panim. This is a bit deep, fine, but all this he's saying is what the rectification through tzedakah, to show us how far-reaching it goes, the power of tzedakah, that it transforms tzedek to tzedakah. And again, this is the message that Rabbi Nachman has in many Torahs in the Likutey Moharan, the power of charity, the power of tzedakah to mitigate judgments, and it's something big. Here, he's going to focus specifically coming up, the tzedakah that we give in the shacharit, when we get to in Vayvarech David, V'ata moshel bakol, that tzedakah is super duper important. It's chaval to push it aside. I remember hearing Rav Rosenfeld on the shiurim of Rav Rosenfeld and Ein Yaakov. He says, and also the Ben Ish Chai brings this advice, if now, for example, there's no pushka next to you, you reach now davening in the morning, and you're standing up, you're saying Vayvarech David, and you have a coins in your hands you want to give, and there's no person coming around with a pushka, or the pushka's at the other end of the shul, and you don't want to go all the way there, and there's no one around you, so you have an eitzah where you can do V'ata Moshe Bakol, you take the tzedakah in your right hand, and you put it in your left hand. and you keep it on the side and wait to give it afterwards. But by you doing that hafrasha, doing that separating of the tzedakah money, advatam, Moshe Bakol, is very important. He says this is what activates all these things here, of getting back the malchut back to Hashem, giving a panim, all these inyanim that he mentions in this Torah, all these amazing things, that the kavod should become, not to take away a person's nefesh, but to give him a nefesh. It's all through this tzedakah specifically of Vayvarech David. And he says himself, take a look in the kavanot of the Arizal on the prayer, the part of the prayer Vayvarech David, where we stand up and we say Vayvarech David in the Psukei de Zimra, and there the Arizal talks about the greatness of the tzedakah there, and here he's expanding it on a more practical, a far-reaching practical level, what it does on a practical level, that it restores the kavod, that the kavod will come to only give a new soul and not to take away a soul. Fine, we can go on, right? If there's any questions at this point? No. Okay, we're going to go on a little. B'ezras Hashem, we can go on still, right? Va'azai, Sif Vav. So now, what's the result? So now, once we elevate the kavod and the malchut, he joins them together. Because kavod and malchut, they work hand in hand. We said kavod in the Kabbalah is the highest sphera, that's keter, and malchut is the lowest one. That in order to malchut, to be malchut of holiness, it has to be connected to kavod. That's why it's called melech hakavod, to receive all this shefa from the highest level of keter, which is the glory of Hashem. It has to be connected directly to the malchut. It's connected together like that. So and our job is to elevate it, the kavod and the malchut back to Hashem, and not to the wrong address, which is the azei panim, the brazen-faced people who take the honor for themselves. And we said last week, we'll say it again, that Rav Avram Rav Nachman, he says this especially applies to a person himself, that he takes the kavod for himself. He's the biggest sakana. In Breslov they teach, the main sakana of mefursam shel sheker, of false leadership, is the person himself. You yourself, the person's ga'ava and his haughtiness. And we brought the example of Naval, who was honoring a feast for himself, and he didn't want to give to David HaMelech food to make a seudah for Rosh Hashanah. So that's an example of a person gives himself the honor and not to the tzaddikim and the right people, the right address that Hashem wants us to give. So now, azai keshemalin et hakavod malchut. So what happens? So what happens now? Understood that now the glory, the honor which was given to the false people, the false address, whether it's like Rav Nosson says in the Likutey Tfilot, the Goyim, Akum, whether it's number 2, the Rishayim, the wicked people who are even Jewish, and whether it's number 3, the Manhigim Shel Sheker, he says, the false leaders, all three have taken the kavod, which doesn't belong to them. It belongs to Hashem, and who Hashem wants it to belong to, which is the true tzaddikim. So what happens is now, when we do the tzedakah activation here, we activate everything through the tzedakah to transform the tzedek to tzedakah. So yotzeh kavod min hasitra achad, the kavod is extracted and goes up from the other side. Mibein ha'azei panim, from the brazen-faced chutzpah people, those people who are azei panim, as mentioned above. V'chozer kavod, and then the glory of Hashem goes to the right address where Hashem wants us to honor. Ela mevinei mada, the leaders, the scholars who are knowledgeable in understanding. Mevinei mada, who are understanding in knowledge. Sorry, mevinei, they're understanding in mada, in da'at and knowledge. Hefech, the opposite of the nefilat hakavod, that the glory of Hashem fell to the brazen-faced people who don't have understanding of knowledge. Shehem nikraim, because they're called, like it says in the continuation of the verse that we brought earlier, aklavim azei nefesh, the dogs are azei nefesh, brazen-souled. Lo yadu sova, don't know how to have satiation. And we said 2 weeks ago, that klavim, dogs, refers to the false leaders, because the pasuk says pnei ador ke pnei kelev, the face of the generation, the leaders are like the face of a dog. So it means the false leaders who take over when things are not in the right like they should be. So klavim azei nefesh, they're azei, and they take the nefesh, which is the gift of the kavod, for themselves. And how come this happened? Lo yadu sova, because people don't know how to eat with restriction. They don't have svi'ut, they're not satisfied. And then the first verse continues, Hema ro'im, what he says now. So the azei panim are called, the dogs, Hema ro'im lo yadu havim, they are leaders, shepherds, lo yadu havim, who don't know understanding. They don't have knowledge of understanding. Lo yadu havin. What's funny is mevine mada is the opposite of yadu havin. Mevine mada means understanding in da'at, and here it's yadu havin, knowledgeable in havin, in understanding. It goes opposite. It's just a side point. There's something here. Be'iyun. This is like this is the question you ask when learning be'iyun. The order is reversed. You said mevini mada, and then the pasuk says yadu havin. But now, Bekitzer, it's the same inyan. But now, when we restore it, we take away the kavod from these false leaders, these azepanim. Achshav chozer el mevini mada. It goes back to those who are knowledgeable, the true leaders. And let's just finish this paragraph because this is the new item that comes. So what happens then? Vazai. So then, keshechozer kavod el mevini mada, when the honor now is restored to the right people. In other words, who Hashem wants us to honor, the true scholars, those who are understanding in knowledge, in wisdom. B'tchilat memshaltam, at the beginning of their new career, of their new rulership, naaseh machloket. There's strife. What's going on here? You would think the exact opposite. If now the kavod is restored to the right address, so let there be shalom. And here Rabbi Nachman teaches something scary, something you don't expect. Naaseh machloket, come on. How come there's strife? It should be ajab. I just work so hard through tzedakah to elevate the kavod and the melech, the malchut, back to Hashem and back to the right address. The shava panim, halach lefanecha tzidkecha. And now you tell me there's machloket. What's going on here? So he explains now, how could it be machloket? Like as if it wasn't enough what we went through until now. I have now another wave to try to deal with. And he says this wave now is something positive. The machloket here is very positive. Why? The machloket that happens at this stage is to suck out all the impurities that are left in the leaders. The leaders, he's going to explain now how it works, and this is where the hair comes into this lesson, the idea of the hair. And by the way, it fits in to the sphira, according to the Arizal, that we don't cut the hair until Shavuot. And again, this lesson was given on Shavuot, and he talks about hair as another topic which is connected to the idea of Shavuot, that we let the hair bedafka grow. According to the Arizal, we don't cut the hair on Lag BaOmer, because it's not just according to the Pshat where we're mourning over the Talmidei of Rabbi Akiva, but we do, according to the Arizal, full 49 days of the Sferat Omer not to cut the hair for another reason, because we want on Shavuot to receive pure da'at without anything called motarot, excesses. So what draws out the excess, believe it or not, is the hair. This is something amazing. If you look how Hashem designed the hairline is exactly where the skull is, the brain is. Even though you have the brain, and after the brain you have a hard thing called the skull, right? Which is hard. And then after that you have the skin, and then you have hair. Hashem made it though, that dafka, the hair, doesn't grow on the forehead, on places here. It grows on the part of the brain. The brain begins here, by the way. This is the face, this is something else. This is the panim. But the actual brain is in the back. It's from here to the end here. And dafka Hashem made it in the creation that human beings have, that the dafka, the hairs grow exactly where the area of the brain is. And it stops where there's no brain. To show you that these sa'arot, what he says coming up, are the motarot, the excess from the brain. And that's why we don't cut the hair on Sferat Omer according to the Arizal, because you want to drain out as much as possible motarot, and then right before Shavuot we cut the hair, so that we can receive pure da'at. He's going to explain all these ideas now. But this is the idea of the machloket. He's going to connect it to the idea of the hairs. I think we'll stop here because it's a whole new inyan. It's going to go a bit long. But I just wanted to just introduce that this is the next level now. The next level of the hair. And he's going to tie this into the very beginning of the Torah, where he says that the Gemara Nida says that when Hashem created Chava, so there's two opinions of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan says that Hashem created her with Bina Yetera. Bina Yetera means additional Bina, but in our context it means the Motarot, the excess of the Bina. And Reish Lakish says, the other Tantana, or Amora, he says that Hashem braided Chava's hair. He braided the hair, and he brought her braided to Adam under the chuppah. And he's going to show Rabbi Nachman that Hainu hach vela plige. They're both saying the same thing. This one is braiding the hair, which is going to go into the whole idea of braided hair. Why there's an inyan, it's unbelievable. There's an inyan, dafka, and Rav Nosson goes into this, that you see by the very ultra-Orthodox, from the Yerushalmi families, that they let the girls go with braided hair. There's an inyan that girls should have braided hair, and he explains that this whole inyan. The braided hair takes out all the excess, and right before the girl gets married, they cut all the hair. So you take all the excesses are in the hair, and the braiding of it, even though the hair grows by itself, but you by actually braiding it, and here the story goes into what's called in the halacha, it's called in Yiddish koltenis. Koltenis is sometimes you have people that it comes out of their head braided, twisted hair. And the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says, and the Shulchan Aruch says, it's a sakana to cut it off. Let it fall by itself. When a person gets hair that's twisted, it comes out twisted, don't touch it. It's dangerous if you touch it. If you touch it, what it happens is the body is trying to let out all the excess from the brain, so it comes out twisted. So if you cut it, so what happens is the excess stays in the brain, and that causes damage, chas v'shalom. We want it to come out. So the hair sometimes comes out twisted. It's called koltenis. Take a look in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, talks about things which are shmirat hanefesh, the laws of shmirat hanefesh. One of the things is braided hair that comes out braided. Don't touch it. Let it fall by itself. And by extension, there's this custom, Rav Nosson says, of braiding dafka the hair of women, braiding their hair dafka until they get married, and then they cut the hair because that takes out all of the excess, all the motarot. Because the idea of chava, to present that the wife should have what's called the bina yetera without any excess, so that it comes off the braiding. We'll go into that B'ezrat Hashem next week, and how this is all connected to machloket of the Mevini Mada, where Rabbi Nachman's taking us is unbelievable. He's connecting one thing to another idea which you never even thought of that would be connected.